Welcome to the PROUST Questionnaire.
35 questions giving us insight into what makes creative people tick.
I'm really excited to have a guest today of a writer, Maaza Mengiste, who is Ethiopian-American and who I've known for many years, and I actually think that I may have met her first in Italy.
Okay.
And I think she's in residence sometimes in Venice, and she's written several books about Ethiopia, where part of her family is from, and about the Italian presence in Ethiopia and that colonial history, which is not that well known to many Americans.
I think not really at all, and yet it was such a huge, obviously, force in the life of the nation of Ethiopia, and was such a big component of Italian history in the early part of the 20th century, too.
And that part, I think that it's part of Italian history, is also something that Italy has quite successfully repressed in a way.
Sure.
And so Maaza is an American writer, and it's a really beautiful story how she actually decided, she'll tell us in this interview, one day to become a writer.
Yeah. Not exactly an easy career choice to make, with no guarantee of success, no particular validation from the world. Although I guess she did say she got an MFA, right?
She got an MFA at NYU, and she became. And then the nice thing is she has become a very, very well-recognized writer. The Shadow King is her most recent novel,
which I'm reading now and is unbelievable, about the kind of Italian Ethiopian.
Yeah, kind of very harrowing, also moving and poignant story about women sort of who are going through this process of the Italian kind of occupation of Ethiopia, really, and then this liberation and what the aftermath of that is. And she's been recognized by The Guardian as one of the top 10 novels out of the African continent, although she writes in America. But and Beneath the Lion's Gaze was her first book, but The Shadow King has really kind of established her now as one of the voices of contemporary literature to reckon with, to engage with, and as you said, a truly moving book, I think.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful, and she's also just such a charming person. You knew her before, I'd never met her, and just in terms of her delightful personality and warmth and sense of fun, this is one of my favorite interviews that we've done.
Yeah, I'm really happy that we got her on the show today. We're so excited for The Shadow King to come out. Incredible. Yeah. Good for you to have completed and released this book.
I'm relieved it's done.
Thank you.
I'm grateful.
Yeah.
So maybe an easy answer, or maybe not. The first question on the PROUST Questionnaire is, what is your idea of perfect happiness?
Oh.
We start easy.
Yeah, that's it. That's an easy one. Perfect happiness. You know, I think it's being somewhere quiet and pretty with my husband, and I know that my family and my friends are nearby. But I have a good book, and I have some ideas with a pen and paper.
Oh.
That's great. That's a nice full portrait.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay, the next question is the flip of this. What is your greatest fear?
Oh. Complacency. Yeah.
You mean that you would become
being completely complacent? Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, just accepting the easy as fact.
Okay. I've been laughing with Uli lately at just how negative these first several questions are after the curveball of perfect happiness. So apologies, but what is the trait you most deplore in yourself?
Procrastination.
Oh, okay. Really?
I hate when I do that, and I do it. I'm like, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh,
right.
And then I don't want to face whatever it is. If it's an email, or if it's a deadline, or it's something else.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it just feels worse the more you put it off,
absolutely.
Of course, which is why you're only hurting yourself.
It. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the worst.
I think it's not about my opinions, but I completely agree with you. It's a terrible feeling. Okay, what is the trait you most deplore in others?
Narrow-mindedness, rigidity. Maybe that's it. Inflexibility of thinking. Yeah. Of imagination. Yeah. Yes.
Which living person, more positively, do you most admire? Oh. Living.
Greta Thunberg.
Yes.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
right now she's at the
Oh,
top
yeah.
of my list
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
every response she's been given to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And at that young an age,
Yes.
too, to have
It's
such...
incredible.
Yeah.
And I think we are seeing someone who is really shaping history. We'll look back on her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maaza, what is your greatest extravagance?
My pens.
What kind of pens do you have?
Fountain pens.
Okay, good ones?
Yeah, but a lot of vintage.
Oh, cool. Really? So you collect?
it's-
sort of?
Yeah, and so it's, I don't know if they're not necessarily always expensive as fountain pens go, but I'm really into, I'm looking at 1920s, 1930s,
Okay.
different kinds of flexibility and gold tip and all of that. So yeah, it's a
Nice.
private joy
Nice.
that I have.
Yeah. Do you write by fountain pen?
I do.
Yeah.
And also my paper I'm really picky about.
Okay.
So I have, I am really selective with that. I write by hand now. I've started switching everything.
How did you do that? It always feels like Shakespeare did it, Proust did it, like a lot of really good
I
people
do
did
it.
it. And now, and you two do it.
Well, but Shakespeare and Proust did not have the availability of a laptop.
Right. They didn't
had no-
necessarily choose.
They make it sound like it's an unusual thing for Shakespeare to write
No,
by
but
hand.
I always think it's so hard to think without
tweet.
Yeah, I couldn't thank the Lord, but or maybe not. Maybe that would have been great. But no, I mean, I always feel like I can't think without the cut and paste and the word processing. How did you make this switch?
It came at a point when I was writing this novel that just came out, and I had finished it, and it was a horrible draft.
Mhm.
It was just a really bad book, and I decided that I was going to do everything again, and I would switch the way I approached writing, the way I approached the story, the way I approached just time.
Mhm.
And I switched and I started writing. I got a fountain pen, got a notebook. The first pens just leaked all over me, and then I figured out what I was doing and what kind of pen I needed. And I forced myself to slow down my thinking, slow down the writing, and it helped pace me in ways that I was giving my brain time to make these leaps as my hand was working across the page. And now I do it. It's just the first thing I do before I transcribe back onto the computer. But I mean, I was doing this in college before we were actually getting really comfortable with computers.
Sure.
I did everything by hand, I realized. So in many ways, I'm just moving back to how I used to do things. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
The pacing part, I think, is kind of, you can hear it in your sentences. I think when you write by hand, you can hear the breathing.
Yeah.
Because you
that's-
can't really, by hand, write faster or slower than your body is. So something about the rhythm of the sentences, I think.
Mhm.
On a computer, you can move the cursor back and insert more
Right.
stuff.
Right.
So it's a
Absolutely.
skeleton you can
Yeah.
cut apart. But
Yeah.
and you tend to do less revision while you're writing. You cross out a sentence and move on.
Yes.
So you don't just keep on pushing things down and rewriting the same thing.
Exactly.
That
That-
is not my procrastination. I just keep
Right,
on
that's
rewriting the same paragraph otherwise.
Exactly. And then what I realized too is that I would write something and say, wait a minute, I crossed this thing out 2 pages ago, but I haven't deleted it like I would on a computer, so it's there and I can look at it and say, this is where it actually should be.
Right,
So it keeps things alive.
Right.
The page does.
Yeah.
And nothing has ever really gone. And it's fascinating for me to look back. And this has happened to me again and again. I will look back on something I've written, and I'm several chapters ahead at this point. And I'll look back and say, oh, wow, this is actually a plot point that I can develop at this point. But I never would have gotten it on a computer because I would have deleted it.
Yeah. Yeah, or it's just kind of lost in some previous
Yeah,
screen. Or
Absolutely.
So the fact that you can see it all,
Yeah.
too, is that part of
Yes.
it?
Yeah,
And it's material.
it is.
Yeah.
It's actually you created it.
Yes.
A
And
computer, I don't even quite know because it's sort of this
computer is
ephemeral thing. It has no relation.
it's sterile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a sterile space, and your thoughts are not that way, and imagination isn't that way. I think there's something very tangible about the paper that I like.
What kind of paper do you use?
Japanese paper.
Extravagant. Okay, we
But they
told the
make the
extravagance.
best. They make the best one. Germans are close.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But sorry.
Don't know. Good to know.
But yes,
I write on
it's
legal
like-
pads.
You do.
Yes.
Yeah, they have some that are.
Yellow American
It's-
legal pads. I
okay,
like that
but
format.
Try
Because
this.
I really want to
other-
be a lawyer. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's about something else.
Aspirational paper choice.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah, but in that sense, I think it sounds like absolutely it's the case that pens and paper are not an extravagance as much as kind of a professional. They become a professional necessity.
Yeah, it feels a bit like a luxury, but when you can get a pen for what?
When nothing. Free.
Nothing.
Yeah.
But then I always say, I'm actually not throwing away plastic pens either as they run out. I'm refilling the ink in my pen.
Yeah. Upcycle.
I'm keeping it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What color ink do you like to use?
My favorite is one that I think is about to be discontinued, so I'm stocking up now, but it's called Blue Velvet. I really like blue.
Blue, yeah.
And then when I feel like I'm working on some large essay and I need to color code, major ideas, I have different colors, and you get into, people can really get into them if you start following on Instagram.
Oh, I
and
know.
There's a shimmer fountain pen inks, and it just runs the gamut. So
When you were in school, did you use a fountain pen?
no.
No. See, I had to.
Yeah, same.
Ah.
In
I went to
Switzerland,
school
I
in
had
Europe,
to.
and I had to. We were
Really?
not allowed to use ballpoint pen. Was completely not accepted.
Gosh.
Pencil or fountain pen.
Yeah.
And part of it was to learn how to use a fountain pen. And actually, there's some institutions in Europe use fountain pens for signatures, and it's required because you have to uncap the pen and think about it before you
That's
sign.
exactly.
So it's a moment of reflection.
That's
So
fascinating.
you also wrote with fountain pens in
Yeah,
Switzerland.
and where we had, I went to school in Switzerland as a kid, and we had to color code things so I went to a French school, but I didn't speak any French, or very little, and they had us write the different verb tenses in different colors at the end. And so it made it kind of fun. I was 11, so it made it kind of fun to have these different colors of ink to play with. But I had never heard that about, I knew that in France, I would never send somebody a letter written in anything other than a fountain pen.
How interesting.
But I didn't know that about the sort of the moment of reflection and
Yeah.
why that's
Yeah, so the
back to
German
pacing again.
That's what it is.
right, it's a moment of
Yeah.
there's time involved.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's why we love this questionnaire. I feel like we got a whole lesson on potentially, to me, very helpful writing approaches. What do you consider? Oh no, I'm sorry. What is your current state of mind?
I'm on book tour. So when I'm not exhausted, I am inspired by the conversations that I'm having with people. The people who come to the readings, the people who share their experiences, who have their own very interesting connections to this history of, Italy and Ethiopia and the war of the 30s. So that is fascinating to me and keeps me going when I'm not tired from the long nights and early mornings.
Sure.
What do you consider the most overrated virtue that we think probably that society believes is a good thing?
Oh, gosh. Maybe I would say now, what's the most overrated virtue? Bluntness.
Oh,
I feel like we've worked our way into a corner with that. And we haven't found the right balance between empathy, sympathy, and honesty. Yeah.
So bluntness, in political discourse, or
and we see it. We've seen the damage it's done, and then that rhetoric leads to actions that are, coded in violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On what occasion, if any, do you lie?
Oh. I was thinking the other day about this. I was thinking about if a woman has lipstick on her teeth, would I say? And how many times have I not said something? And that's also a lie of omission because everybody is staring. And and I won't say, and I don't say it. And I just told myself, and it's not from any particular occurrence, but I just said, from now on, I'm going to say something.
Yeah.
But I don't know why we don't. And that feels like a lie. When you're sitting there talking to somebody and they have something in their teeth or something on, and nobody says anything.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if it's an American trait or I have no idea, but I feel like that's a lie. And I'm going to stop doing that.
Okay.
Maybe we should all stop. Because I think it's symptomatic of a kind of politeness that's sometimes just not that good.
Yeah, and even counterproductive, like the person whose feelings you've spared by not mentioning the lipstick on their teeth are more mortified when they go home.
I mean, it's happened to me.
Me too, all the time. I've given up on lipstick for that reason. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess you're right. I guess that is as opposed to the radical honesty of like, I don't know you, but you have lipstick on your teeth, or I do know you, and you have lipstick on your teeth.
But when would I lie? I guess when would I lie is if it's too late for honesty. If like the damage has been done already, if something has been wrecked, and I might just say it's okay. I'm not, but I think I would do that. I'm sure I would lie. Not to be in trouble.
Who, me?
I know.
Right.
I didn't break that.
When the doctor is like, how do you drink alcohol?
God.
Like 1 glass.
Right.
I always lie.
We have to lie.
Glasses a week.
Right. Right, because if it's like more than 2 a week, you're an alcoholic, according to some, right. Although actually a shrink friend of mine told me that they learn in medical school to like triple the amount that the person says. Oh. And I don't know if that's just with people who are manifestly problem drinkers or if it's a general rule, but now I really wonder if I should say like a third of a glass of wine
Nobody
a week.
tells the truth.
I know.
1 sip a week.
One sip a week. Just the one sip.
A sniff a week.
It's easy for me to stop. Yeah. Oh God.
But I guess if there's already, I guess there's damage that's been done, and I don't even know what situation that would be, but I've had maybe friends come up and say, I'm really sorry that this happened, that I said, it's like, and even if it's not okay, at some point I have to say, it's okay, we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Even if I'm
Let's not go on because it just will be more hurtful, actually.
Yeah.
And nothing will be restored, but
Right.
it just adds. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of just dragging it out and having them continue to explain themselves.
Yeah.
What do you, again, another negative question,
Yeah.
what do you most dislike about your appearance?
Oh, I'm short. You didn't know that. And that has always been, there are times where I said, my God, I wish I was taller. I wish I were, really. There have been certain times where I've told my friends, if I were bigger and stronger, there have been many people in this world who would have been punched out. Like, I would have started many more fights.
Okay.
I know that but this...
Because you can back it up.
What could you do? Yeah, what can I do? And, I think it's the height, but it was a losing... my family. I come from a family of very short people.
So you became a writer.
And I became a writer. So I
What's the mightiest sword?
Because when you're in the school, you're like I was a school kid and kids would push. Kids are cruel. I would turn around and like, oh my God, if I were bigger, like I would jump on you right now. Yeah. So I think that's it.
Okay.
Which living person do you most despise?
Oh God, you know what's too easy?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of enablers.
Well, that's where I think, but I really, if there's like an unadulterated hatred, like sheer hatred, it's the current administration and Trump. Yeah. It's and that seems like a really easy answer, but
which is terrible to live in a time where the
answers. But that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And I think Ivanka would be right up there because she's really using this role to be manipulative in ways. Yeah.
And my hope when he unbelievably won was that somehow at least she would be
as a kind of educated, seemingly rather
Yeah.
intelligent
Yeah.
woman, that she would be able to be a kind of a check and a balance
Yeah.
on that level of
Yeah.
crazy.
And I think it's, you know, those, like you're saying, all those people around him that continue to be complicit, and not only complicit, but they're taking advantage of the wreckage.
And they're making choices.
Yeah.
And he has
Yeah.
several children, and not all of them are playing the same role.
Right.
So Ivanka plays a certain role, and the other children. So in some ways, it's a choice. And I think it's important. It's not she has no choice.
Right.
She's an adult, and she's making a very deliberate
Yeah.
choice. So in some ways, I think that's the part
Yeah.
where you think you could have exercised some of your own judgment and made decisions on behalf of certain things that you could
Yes.
help.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like that's... Well, she's made choices.
Right. Yeah. And it's so deceptive. It's not deceptive for many of us here in the U.S., but what's happening on an international level with her whole PR, I just find despicable. And and I did not think it was possible for me to hate somebody that I didn't know very well.
Mm.
Yeah.
But it is a pure hatred. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I
and
wish I could think of something more creative, but
Mm-hmm.
that, I think he wins right now.
Yeah, and that's where we are now, I
Yeah.
think, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, there were always people who rabidly hated the Clintons and were convinced that they were criminals, so maybe it's inaccurate for me to say that what feels unusual about the time we're living in now is that it's not an unoriginal answer, but it's an answer that feels very urgent to many of the
Yeah.
people that we've spoken
Yeah.
to, and it's hard for me to think in recent memory about a time when we would have had that overwhelming a number of people
Right.
reacting in that way to
That's
the current
right.
administration.
Yeah,
Whether-
that's exactly.
It's
I
also-
didn't love George W. Bush, but I didn't despise him.
Right.
Right. It's also not a political feeling, and in some ways what you're saying, people could have not hated the Clintons. In some ways this is a different one because it has a global dimension to
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
So,
The consequences of
yeah.
everything that he says is unbelievable. Yeah.
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 All right. This is me. What is the quality you most like in a man? Oddly gendered, and you'll get woman next.
Yeah, I know. And I saw those. I think it's going to be the same. But I would say humor.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also what I like in a woman.
So that's the next question. So also
Yeah,
the quality
I
you most
think-
like in a woman,
Right.
humor.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really, people who have a sense of humor, who like to laugh, are usually the people that I have around me in one way or another.
I also think it's a really critical thing today when there's so many things to hate.
Mhm.
I think without humor it actually becomes
I
very
know.
leaden in a
That's
way,
it.
and I sort of think there has to be a space. And it's very hard to come up with it, but it's very important.
It is.
Very important to laugh, because you don't want to maybe laugh at this particular thing, but you want to laugh.
Yeah,
And if you lose your sense of humor here,
you can't.
you're kind of trapped.
It is.
Because then you're just in this negative space.
Right, and it wears you down. You need those bursts of, I think, the bursts of light
Yeah.
and levity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
Oh my gosh. A friend of mine just picked that out for me this summer. I say, she said I've switched. I used to say, oh my God, that's so funny. And she said, but now you're saying that's hilarious. I said, we're in extreme times.
Right.
That's what's happening.
The humor is ratcheted up, and so is the response.
Jeez. So I think I use that. And what else do I like? I'm sure I know I have these verbal tics, but I also say this is so interesting. That's so interesting when I'm talking to people, and I wish I could find another way to say I'm interested in what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I don't know
That's a
what
good
that
one,
is.
though,
Well, it's
right?
I have
kind
the
of-
same take. That is my take.
That's so interesting.
It's so interesting. And I actually do think I believe it's interesting.
No, I
but
do,
people say to
yeah.
me sometimes, okay, you say that a lot.
Yeah, that.
And I do find a lot of things interesting, but I don't
But
know what
there
else
has
to
to be
say.
another word. I know. I'm trying to find it too.
Yeah, this friend of mine and I, Maury Samuels, who's a French literature professor, and he was like me, and he was in college with me and Uli way back in the day. He and I used to joke about how we had to come up with an alternative when grading papers, undergraduate papers, for good or bien. In the margins, like bien, check mark, bien. And one of our senior colleagues lit up when we complained about this to him. He said, "Oh, I've spent decades perfecting, he's like, now I write perspicacious and astute.
Insightful.
Perspicace et astucieux.
That's
So
funny.
I now, when I really want to
Wow.
actually elevate my own game and imply
Actually, I
that.
remember this from school that I looked up. I was really interested in this word interesting.
Oh,
And it's from the Latin interesse, which means to be in the middle of things.
I like
And
that.
I remember as a child being really interested, to not overuse this word, in this word and to be in the middle of things. So for me, interesting really means you're in it. You're immersing yourself in something. So I
Yeah.
always thought the word was very engaging, drawing you in, and it wasn't just looking from a distance. But I think people hear it as like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, I want to hear more. But I think they hear sometimes like, I've judged it as interesting and I can move on.
Like it's
Right.
filler somehow.
No, for me,
or-
it's, I actually want to like, tell me
That's
more.
exactly.
Tell me
that-
more is good.
Tell me
Tell
more.
me more.
Tell me more.
Tell me more. That sounds
Unless
like,
you don't, unless you're not that interested.
Well, no.
That's from Grease, the soundtrack.
Tell me more.
Tell me more,
Yeah.
right?
Perspicacious and astute. I knew.
I like
I
that.
knew your
I'm gonna
interview would be
remember that.
perspicacious and astute. Yeah, we love to. Yeah, throw
Tell
that
me
one out
more.
there now.
Tell me more.
Tell me more. I never want to write on a student paper. But what or who is the greatest love of your life?
Oh my goodness. Well, I would say my husband. And you said what? Also, which I find very, very interesting. I'm trying. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, my husband. Yeah. But my camera.
Oh,
My home camera.
really?
That I carry. I will
Yeah.
take it with me. But I remember many, many years ago when another camera I had with my lenses and some film I had taken got stolen,
Oh.
and how it really felt like
Mm.
a human being had been taken. And it took me another 6 years to pick up a camera again, because it was such a devastation. I didn't want anything like that anymore. And now I'm back at it.
Yeah.
So maybe, that would be it.
Nice.
When and where were you happiest?
Ooh. I would say my childhood in Ethiopia. I was probably the happiest, even though it was also the early days of this revolution that started in the 70s. It was also a moment when all my family was together. And we've never been together like that. Everybody went into exile, or the revolution wrecked the family. But we were all together at some point. There were weddings, birthday parties. I just remember all of those good moments before this big change and upheaval.
That's lovely. Which talent, presumably that you don't have, would you most like to have?
Drawing, painting.
Hmm.
I really wish I could do that.
Yeah.
I really wish I could. I'm in awe of that skill, that gift.
Would that? Do you feel like that would enrich your current creative process, your literary process
I think
somehow?
so. Yeah. And I haven't. I don't think I don't have it. I don't have depth. I don't have that I can't see depth on paper. But I think it would. Again, it's the working with the hand. It's a process that still feels as organic as it was as it has been for centuries.
Yeah.
So I'm in awe of that. And in fact, while I was writing this book that just got published, I was reading Leonardo's notebooks, Da Vinci's notebooks,
Wow.
and just looking at all of the ways that he was speaking about drawing and how you create depth, how you render a battle on canvas. I was looking at that as ways, how can I translate that into words? What is he doing? And he has this phrase that it's about drawing, but it's also something that my character says and to his son, who is going to war to fight against Ethiopia. I'm sorry, he's Italian. But Leonardo says the boundaries of bodies are the least of all things.
Wow.
And there's tons of things like that, and he's really it's a way of seeing, but not just the canvas, but life.
Yeah.
And I've been reading that, and periodically I still go through, but some of his phrases are in my book, and that's one of them that appears a couple of
Oh,
times.
that's great. That's really
I have
great.
to think about that phrase.
Yeah.
The boundaries of bodies,
Or the least
of all things.
Least of all things. Well, yeah, because if you're Leonardo, you can modify them with the stroke of a...
And I think what he's meaning, don't draw the line.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Let the figure blend.
Into the space,
Yeah.
And that informed the way you approached character
Mm-hmm.
in this novel?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Perspicacious and astute. Okay, Uli, you're up.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
I wish I didn't need so much sleep. Oh,
Yeah, would
like
that be
I
great?
wish.
Yeah.
There's just so much and I say, well, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Go to bed. But I really wish that there was a way. I remember Michelangelo was trying to do this experiment at some point or was it Leonardo da Vinci, where he thought maybe human beings only need 15 minutes of sleep an hour.
Oh, God.
So it's a constant napping.
Oh, okay. Like
But
intermittent
still,
fasting somehow?
But
Yeah.
still, that would seem to wreck your creative process, I would assume. But he was trying to do that.
Huh.
And at some point, I think it was Da Vinci, and at some point realized, I'm driving myself crazy. Like, the brain needs sleep.
You need sleep, but I interviewed this a person, Ben Rice, who wrote a book on sleep and the invention of sleep, and he says in the 19th century they invent this idea that people need to sleep 8 hours, but it's entirely linked to labor and factory times, and there's no proof, no idea,
Really?
none whatsoever that 8 hours has anything to do with the natural rhythms. And then they did this other study, which I know, which is a real book on it, so it's much more profound than what I'm going to say, but they looked at all these people all over the planet, including people who live in places where there's no artificial light. The only thing that makes a difference, whether it's cooler, you go to sleep, the darkness and lightness makes no difference at all. And people generally tend to sleep around 6 hours and no more than that. And then they wake up. And then Ben, who wrote this book, he said people used to get up at 4 a.m, eat a little meal, start the fire, go back to sleep for 2 hours. So they would sleep for a little bit, take a nap. So all of us who wake up a lot, in Caroline doesn't sleep that much.
Yeah.
So
It's horrible.
And we had a conversation last week with someone, Isaac Mizrahi, who's an insomniac. But this regimented feeling not right if you don't sleep for several hours in a row, he said that wasn't even a possibility then.
Wow.
He said you had to stoke the fire and all that. You get up, eat a little meal, go back to sleep.
That makes sense, though.
Right, yeah.
Right. And it's interrupted sleep, which is considered really bad, used to be the norm. And so people all over the planet sleep for no more than 6 hours, whether it's light or dark, and just it cools down and then you sleep. But probably sleeping for 8 hours would probably also be dangerous.
Right.
It's in the same
I
location.
can't,
Right?
Like a polar bear is going to come and get you.
Right.
If you
Something,
linger
exactly.
for 2 more hours
Right,
and the sun
right.
comes up. But what about all the medical? I mean, I feel like my doctor and my shrink are constantly hectoring me about the importance of sleep and the importance of 8 hours.
See,
That's
all these
I
studies
wanna
show that
read
8 hours
that.
is not the number that actually has any bearing on. And then they say some people don't need that, kind of opening up the visa. Who are those people?
Right.
I also don't like sleep that much, and some people love sleep. If I could take something and not sleep at all, I think I'd be okay.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I don't
Right.
look forward. Oh my! Some people love sleeping, which is great, good for them.
Yeah.
I'd rather be doing things.
Me too. Yeah.
But you feel like you need
I
a certain
do
amount of
need
sleep.
it. I mean, I get-
yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I think about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
If I have that,
Mhm.
but I tend to wake up also, in the middle of the night periodically. I have that, sleep is. I don't know if that's just part of what being human is, and part of what we've been taught one thing, but our bodies are actually
Right. Totally different.
behaving in this
That's
other
right.
way. So
Mhm.
we never think we're right when maybe it was just normal. Maybe
Right.
this is
And
just
some
the way it
cultures have
is.
nap time
Right.
every day in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
It's actually at the workplace you sleep for 45 minutes. The only thing that the Google campus doesn't have, which has just about everything, is places to sleep.
Ah.
So I have a friend who works at Google. I won't name in what part of Google, what part of where on Earth. And his favorite time is 3 p.m, where he goes into the parking lot, goes into his car, and sleeps for 40 minutes.
Oh.
And he said, you can do anything else. You can play ping pong,
Get
you
a
can
massage,
learn this, you
yeah.
can eat
But
anything you want,
can't.
you can do this, you can go swimming, you can probably do horseback riding, but you cannot sleep. So he sleeps in his car in the parking lot. And I said, are you the only one? He said, let's not talk about that.
They're
wow.
proud.
So I just revealed that he doesn't work in New York City.
Okay. Oh.
Oh yeah, that's
Right. Yeah.
Not the
Not many
subway.
people driving in
There
New
are
York.
many
Yeah,
other
driving.
places where people
Okay.
work.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
I mean, the easy thing would be having done this book. But I think one of the, what else would it be? Maybe it was, God, I don't want to say this book. It's too, I think it was the decision to come to New York. I was living in Los Angeles, but to move to New York, I quit my job. I left everything there, and I made this leap to go attend the creative writing program here at NYU, and decided I'm going to try to write a book, even though I had never written anything really, had never been published, had not written a short story except for the application.
Mm.
So I when I think back, I think that was a big leap, and I'm proud of it. Because there was everything that was saying you shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And then there was no guarantee I would ever publish or that I could finish a book or I could write. I had no sense of how to do it. So, yeah, I'm glad about that.
Wow.
That's a great story,
Yeah.
and maybe hopefully inspiring for people who listen to this.
So how
who
did you
would wanna
not
write.
listen to those voices of people saying, well...
It took a long time, and I just said, this is just something I'm going to do, if for nothing else but myself. And hopefully I can
Great.
find a job after
Yeah.
after I graduate if this doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were to die and come back as another person or as a thing, what or who would that be?
Oh, that's a good one. If I could, I'm trying to think of if I could come back as another person. I would come back at the age they are right now.
Wait.
Come back whenever you want.
Yeah, come back whenever you want.
Okay.
Why did you ask
because
that?
I'm thinking about like what is the most effective way to do this?
You want to be the young Obama?
No, it wouldn't be the young Obama. No, and I don't want to be Obama
No,
now.
I'm kidding, I
because
know.
he's not,
I'm
not
kidding.
president anymore.
I know.
Oh, but Obama as president would be on the table for you potentially?
Well, it's already passed. That's why I was asking.
Oh,
Like, it would have to be like, is it
I
somebody
see.
right
Could
now?
you travel backward in time?
Yeah.
and-
And
I think yes. I think the question is
It's-
pretty open-ended.
Right.
If you were to die and come back...
Given that it's untethered from all principles of space and time
Oh,
as we
really?
know them, I
Pretty-
think so. If you were to
Oh,
die and
this is
come
what-
back as a person or thing,
at any time.
I think so.
sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is what I would do.
Okay, tell us.
I would come back as George W. Bush,
Oh.
and I would not invade.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
There you
I
go.
would not invade, and
I
I would actually work to
Wow.
to educate everyone on Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, and go after the real attackers if that had to happen.
Wow.
Yeah,
I love that kind of.
Yeah.
and maybe I wouldn't paint,
Okay, fair enough.
or maybe I would, but I'd
Yeah.
be really good at it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's so open-ended. I
Yeah.
think it can be whatever you
Okay.
want. That's a great. But in terms of thinking about ways to go back and rewrite and alter the course of history, that's a really interesting one to choose. I
Yeah.
think.
Right.
Because I think we haven't had this answer, but I could imagine someone saying, well, I would go back and assassinate Hitler.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
I would go back and, I don't know, stop the sacking of Rome. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But
And actually, you're the first question to say, I would use this question to do something good for the world.
Oh, really?
Everybody
Yeah.
else is, I want to be something amazing. Answers were wonderful, but they were about, I'm going to be this.
I'll be a flower. Or
Yeah, yeah. So it's actually really interesting. It's that you turned the question into a moral possibility.
Yeah.
Where would you
Okay.
most like to live?
I would really love to live in a small, isolated village in France. Because I did a lot of my editing for this book in a village it's one of these old medieval places, villages. The population when I was there, including me, was 65.
Wow. Where was the village?
Wow.
Outside
part
of Toulouse.
Okay.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
And it was wonderful. And I got to know all the people, or almost all of them.
Wow.
There were more sheep in the fields. I said, gosh, I would love to live here or somewhere like this at some point. This has that quietness that I really like. And I can get away from the general chaos of life and read and write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you choose that particular village?
They were just starting a residency.
Okay.
And a friend of mine who knows the people running this said, you would be really great. Can I tell them about you and your work? I said, sure. So I went, and
Great.
it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so they are looking for people. They look for academics, and then they look for writers.
Ooh,
Just an FYI.
let's go together. Do they have more? Did you have fellow writers in residence, or was it?
It was
is it one
just
at a time?
me, but the place is large enough for.
Yeah.
Since we all have different answers, the idea of 65 people puts me into a mild panic.
Oh, really? Really?
But you could just go down the hill.
Okay.
And there's
The
Let me think about it for a
There's
moment.
people with 200. There's a village with 200 people.
When you want to go to the
It's
big
like
city.
Seems very calm. It's like kind of terrifyingly calm.
Okay. Uli's not sold.
I can
Yeah,
just
yeah,
imagine.
I definitely am.
I would
Yeah.
love.
Yeah,
I
no,
lo-
it's
I
kind of-
loved it.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll try it out. We'll give it a try.
What is your most treasured possession?
Oh. Oh, yeah. This bracelet, which I wear all the time, my grandmother gave it to me just before she died. Actually, she gave it to me when I was 12 and made me promise not to take it off. Then my mom took it and took a bracelet that my grandmother had given her when she was a girl and wove the two together and gave it to me. So I have not taken this off since I was 12.
Wow.
And your mom, that's
Had it
really
done.
beautiful work. Your
Yeah.
mom wove that together herself?
Yeah, she had somebody do it,
Okay.
obviously, but this is something with my mom and my grandmother. So it is really the most.
Beautiful.
It's here.
It's
yeah.
beautiful. too.
Thank you.
Cool. What do you regard as the lowest depth of misery?
Hopelessness. I think to have that feeling or to experience it as as an individual or as a nation, as a world, feels to me like the depth. That means there's nowhere else to go.
What would be your favorite occupation? And we assume that means if you weren't doing what you're doing right now.
Photographer. Yeah.
Nice. What is your most market characteristic? And we think that's what people perceive about you first, or notice about you when they meet you first, right?
Maybe just I like to laugh. I really do. And it's slightly ironic thinking about the nature of the books that I read and the work that I do, and I'm always looking at conflict or violence in one way or another. But yeah, the other side, like you have to have that.
What do you most value in your friends?
Generosity of spirit. I really appreciate that.
Who are your favorite writers?
Oh. I can go back to the Greeks, the tragedies. which
Well, your
are
book starts by actually the epigraphs are from
the Iliad,
the first one is the Iliad, but there's a second one.
Agamemnon. I love Agamemnon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is an incredible play.
Yeah.
And I read those, and I read them several times over a course of a year.
Yeah.
There's certain ones. Agamemnon is one, Medea is another, Antigone is another.
Yeah.
And all of the ways that other writers have rewritten these texts, like Krista Wolf with
I
Clytemnestra,
love that book.
Cassandra,
Oh my God, Cassandra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Medea.
That's one of her big
Yeah,
books.
it's
Yeah, Cassandra.
amazing.
That's such a
Right.
yeah, and
It's
you're right.
Incredible the way she's revisioned those.
And these kind of foundational stories
Yes.
that wind up, and you see how Hamlet relates to
Mhm.
Oedipus.
Mhm.
You see how they've recurred
Yeah.
over and over again.
Right.
That's neat that
Yeah.
that you and they're not that because I like to read that stuff too. And what people often think, oh well, you're reading Sophocles, like that seems so dry or pretentious or pompous, but actually they're very quick reads
They
too.
are.
They're short and they pack a lot of punch for a fairly
They do.
short
Right.
word count.
Right.
So that's great that you
Yeah.
read and reread those. Others though? Other writers? Other
Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon is to me one of the greatest
One of the
books
great books.
ever written.
I know.
Yeah.
When he's on the roof in the beginning.
Oh,
Cracks.
My
Actually,
gosh.
actually, that whole character.
it's amazing. It's incredible. Yeah, that whole book.
I know.
And I see her also as part of this conversation that includes E.L. Doctorow, and particularly Doctorow's Book of Daniel, which I find is one of the best books also written.
I
It's
haven't read that one.
incredible.
Really?
Yeah, and he's taken the McCarthy era, the execution of the Rosenbergs, who were accused of spying for the Soviets, and written this book that's centered around them. It's incredible. And so I had my NYU graduate class read it last spring, and they were astounded at the correlations to this political climate. And that book is fabulous. It's also written in a way that is exciting. It's structurally, he took risks, and he's not writing in a very linear fashion. And that book is stupendous.
Oh, that's
Yeah, I would highly recommend that.
Was he a
Okay.
teacher of yours here?
He was not. I met with him.
You met with him when you were studying here.
Yeah.
Because he taught at the Creative Writer
I'd forgotten
and
that,
NYU, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
Ragtime.
incredible.
I mean, I love
is
Ragtime. I teach that
amazing.
sometimes.
It
Yeah.
it is an incredible book. Book of Daniel, though,
Oh my gosh.
is
I
I would
read-
recommend that to everyone.
great.
But be ready.
Okay. All right. Who is or are your favorite fictional characters? So the original question is, who is your hero of fiction? But we think that also means hero in a non-gendered way, and also film, television, other media that have developed with important, interesting characters since the days of print culture only.
I would say, I think one of my favorite films is The Battle of Algiers. And there's a character in there of this little kid. And I don't, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to give too much away, but he joins this group of revolutionaries trying to fight against the French colonialism. And he's just riveting to me. I kept watching this little kid throughout the whole film. Incredible. So I was thinking of him, and actually of all that group, the group of people from that film, while I was writing my first book, which is also set during a revolution. And the film is amazing, but that little kid is someone that just keeps popping up in my head when I think of films and heroes. Then, I mean, in terms of literary figures, maybe that there's so many. I don't even know where to go. If I would, this is, I like Clytemnestra, if we're talking about the Greeks and Agamemnon, and the way that Aeschylus rendered her, because this is a woman that's just like, yes, I'm going to do this. And the chorus is just saying, can't necessarily fight her. They're just tired. They're old men, and they keep saying, we're tired. And she, at some point after killing Agamemnon, I will never forget, there's some line where she comes in, and she says, yes, I did it. In fact, I will lift my killing hand and show you. Like, oh my God. Clytemnestra.
That's so much better than Lady Macbeth.
Yeah.
Can I get the blood off my hand?
Oh no. And she said,
I will.
This is my killing hand. It was some line that I just said, she just is not sorry because her daughter was killed, and for her there's a different kind of law that she's following. I found that fascinating. So in terms of maybe these a heroine, a hero that is outrageous in the sense that breaking laws in order to maintain other laws, I find her a really interesting and complicated character. Maybe that's
Antigone, maybe by the
Antigone
same logic or less so.
Well, Antigone was really interesting. I look at her as I read her as a refugee. I read her as a displaced person. She's with Jason. She doesn't belong there. She has all of these stereotypes that are placed against her. She's in this culture that will not fully accept her. Jason has moved on, and she says again and again, give me a home.
Oh, you mean Medea?
Medea.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Medea. No,
she is displaced. No, Antigone is Oedipus's daughter.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It breaks the law to preserve another law.
Medea. Yeah, so Medea.
But the displaced person, that's really.
Yeah, and I think of her. So she does. Yeah, it's for me. She's more complicated in that way. Antigone is correct. Like I will bury my brother.
Right.
No matter
I will
what.
do this no matter what. There are these certain laws that I must follow. Yeah. And I find that heroic. But there's something about Clytemnestra just completely demolishing this household. Like, of course Orestes is going to come later. That's going to happen. But for that moment, there's no one that can really fight her. And she is fighting for this dead daughter. Unfortunately, Cassandra gets in the way too. But I'm trying to. But in terms of archetypal characters that I think about, it's often those.
I love that. That.
Which historical figure do you most identify with?
Ooh. When I, now, when I think about, I've started looking, it's not a particular character or a particular figure, but I've been looking at women over the course of different revolutions and civil conflicts and World War II, and I've been thinking about those anti-fascists, the women in the Spanish Civil War, the women that were in Ethiopia, the women that were in Italy that were fighting against, with the partisans, and people in these resistance groups that were all across Europe, but all across Africa too, in the liberation movements. And the women, though, I think have been completely inspiring to me. I've been trying to read up and find photographs and learn a little bit more of the history of specific individuals. But I relate to them in the sense that I feel we are, in the United States, there's a resurgence of misogynistic laws also masquerading as patriotism. And the conversations are happening now here, but I always look back at these women and say, how did you do it? Because they were doing it in ways that they didn't have social media to galvanize each other. Right. Sometimes they were the only ones in a small place, and still they were doing this. Yeah,
before they even had the right to vote,
absolutely.
At least in France.
Absolutely.
I mean, to be that brave and to make that big of a mark in some very dangerous and courageous way.
Yes.
Really extraordinary. Who are your heroes in real life?
I guess, my mother would seem like an obvious choice, but she's lived through so many different moments in Ethiopian history. She has moved from this society where there were arranged marriages and there were certain ways for women and girls to behave and certain things that they should do and should not do. And, she had a high school education and then wasn't really allowed to go much further. She had to marry, and she married my father. But even with that, she was determined to carve her own a world for herself and create a business and run her work. And that is something that most women in her generation did not do. Mm-hmm. So that, I always look to her as an example. But I think when I think about heroes, I also think about the people within the African Americans in this country, the civil rights movement, the sheer determination over the centuries of this country to just not rest until more change happened. And I think, when I think about the ways that the racism in this country continues to decimate communities and families, and still women, the mothers of those young boys and girls who are killed, are just standing up and speaking to power. That's amazing. So yeah, they are my heroes, because it's hard. People are scared, but they're doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, Maya Angelou writes this in the preface to a book, that the only true manifestation of grace in the world has been the African American presence in America. That grace, because she said you could also expect these people to become enraged, consumed with anger, bitter in other ways, but she said this is grace, to actually keep your eye on freedom and dignity. And it's really, she said it, and she said this is this is why we know this can happen on Earth. Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
It's James Weldon Johnson's book. She introduces it, but she said I was very moved by that. She said this is a manifestation of grace that for hundreds of years we've witnessed in this country.
Yes,
it's kind of nice what you're describing, the strength
it is
in the face of
this hatred
and decades, centuries
of people just saying it will not happen. It's amazing.
What are your favorite names?
Oh. Oh my goodness. What are my favorite names? I was thinking about and I don't think I have. I used this name in my first book, Salam, which means peace in Amharic. And it's a name I give one of my characters. And I've always loved that. And it's I've loved that name. And I've loved Dawit, which means David. And I have it in my first book, and now I have it in my second book. And I tried to convince my brother to name one of my nephews that. It didn't work.
Good thing you got it in the books.
They have good names, but I got it in the books. Yeah.
What is it that you most dislike?
Like the thing? A thing? Well, I mean, not a trait, but a thing that I most dislike. Oh, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what drives me crazy when it happens. Because, I don't want to say snake. Because that's a thing, but that's not, it's like a fear. It's a fear, right? That's not a thing I dislike. I think I dislike. I hate when I see people bullying other people in public. I don't like unfairness. I know sometimes injustice is hard to change, but unfairness is something that I really, when someone takes someone's seat in a subway, there have been a couple of times where I pulled that person off.
Oh. And not even with your ideal height, you've been able to accomplish
they
that.
were about my height or not so big.
You did that calculation?
I did. That's I see an old lady coming in to sit, and this young kid says, "Oh no, you don't." I get my professor voice.
Yeah, you're
And
quite a
I've done
master
that
voice.
A few times.
Get that killing hand in there.
So yeah, maybe that's a thing. It's a little esoteric, but outside of tripe. Which is a food thing.
Okay.
Which is the worst thing. But when we were in Florence, I don't know if that's the food, and you would see people lined up eating it.
I know. Yeah.
No,
You never want to say any kind of food is disgusting.
Yeah.
But I'll
There's a lot of that in James' Choice.
Really?
Oh my God.
Really?
A lot of
Oh,
very
you-
detailed,
ew.
luscious
Because
descriptions of the
It's
text.
the most
I know.
disgusting.
So, yeah.
Sorry,
Joyce
tripe lovers.
is really
Yeah.
Joyce is really big on that.
Oh.
It gives you the whole sensation while you're reading it.
Yeah.
No.
Innards.
Innards. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
not
no.
okay.
Even that word.
Innards.
Sorry. Okay.
What is your greatest regret? If you have one.
Oh. I remember when I was in high school and there was a kid in my class that was always bullied. And I never said anything. And we got in touch on Facebook when I was on Facebook at some point. And we talked, and I said, "How are you?" and this, but I never said, "I'm really sorry for this." And now I'm not on Facebook anymore, so it's been years. But yeah, I think that would be it, because it was, those kinds of things stick with you.
Right.
And I didn't say that. Maybe I should. Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
not too late.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it may mean something to that person.
Exactly.
May.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How would you like to die?
Oh, God. You mean in my sleep or through a slow, painful death?
Yeah. We haven't had many people opt for the slow, painful.
Yeah, you know.
Really?
There's a first for everything, though, so
There's a first.
tell us more.
Well, if it was in my sleep, the thing about people who say they want to die in their sleep don't realize that gives you no time to say goodbye. You're just gone. So I would like some time. I'd like a pre-warning. Like, hello, Maaza, you've got a week, but it'll be a wonderful week. And then you'll fall asleep, and that's it. And that I could do. Yeah.
What is your motto?
Oh, I do have it. I say, what's the alternative?
Oh.
Whenever I need to make a decision, I want to do something, say, what's the alternative? And usually I'm already
love
living
that.
the alternative. And so I want that difference. And I'll go for
You'll
it.
do it. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
that.
I love
That's
that.
my motto.
That's a great one, yeah.
Because, you hear it, sometimes one hears it used rhetorically, like, well, it's raining outside, but what's the alternative?
Right.
Like, we don't have a planet anymore. But the idea that you're actually taking that question seriously
Mm-hmm.
I like
and
that.
considering the alternative.
Yeah.
is
Yeah, I
really-
always say it to myself.
And when you're working to, like when you're writing,
Yes,
you're envisioning the different alternative paths that
exactly.
your writing could take.
So Carolyn and I added one question to this PROUST questionnaire, which he answered first when he was 15. And this is, who would you like to hear answering these questions?
Oh.
Is there anybody you
Yeah.
could think, it would be better if they're alive, it's easier?
Because you'll maybe give us an idea for someone.
Yeah, just sort of
Yeah.
like what would be your fantasy guest, someone you would really love to hear answer this set of questions?
There are two people. One is a really good friend of mine, Mona El Tahawi.
Mm-hmm.
I think she would be great.
Yeah.
It would be
All right.
fantastic. That I would love to hear her, and then she and I can have a conversation afterwards.
Compare answers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what did you say about that?
And then, who else would I really like? Saadia Hartman,
Yes.
whose work I'm just starting to read now that I'm done with many things. Her work is mind blowing,
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah.
like boundary breaking. Yeah, and I think she would be fantastic.
That's a
Yeah.
great idea.
Wonderful.
And she teaches
Yeah.
at Columbia.
Yeah.
Oh,
so-
okay.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
does. Yeah,
exactly.
She teaches at the university.
Let's ask both of them.
It's a great
And then
idea.
we'll all go out
Thank
and
you.
have 3 sips of wine.
Yes.
Yeah, just 3
Great,
sips.
that's all right. Maaza, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
really
That was
fun.
So
great.
great.
That was great.
It was
really
really
fun.
fun. It was
Thank
really
you.
great.
That was great.